I do know that the night I got up at 3 in the morning and I woke up, I knew something had happened. And I just wanted to go in the kitchen, and I walked into the kitchen, and there's this enormous butcher block, and it's right in front of the refrigerator, and it's heavy. And I looked down at it, and then the legs moved, and that broke whatever was going on in my mind. I think I was projecting that screen image because I couldn't accept what was really there. My mind couldn't. The brain, separate from me, it was protecting me, and there it was. It was so tiny, and just looking up at me, and we had this moment. It was like and it just went straight through the refrigerator. But what's happening here is that we're all part of this, we're all part of a program. We're all individuals involved with them from the get-go, and we're finding each other and coming together as a family.
Welcome, everyone, to Cosmic Convergence, an experiencer-hosted podcast. Join us as we dive into the fascinating realms of extraterrestrial intelligence, consciousness, and more. Today, we are joined by Steve Neill, a lifelong experiencer and host of the channel Breaking the Silence. Links will be below. Steve is a professional artist, VFX creator, and he's been in the industry for decades. His work reflects real encounters with non-human intelligences and gives back to the experiencer community by helping them recreate their personal interactions with the beings. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. That was quite nice. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for joining us. It's a real honor. I've been wanting
Oh,
to
it's
get
nice
you on
to
this
meet
show
you
for
all.
a while. Yeah, it's great to meet you
Yeah,
too.
it's like pulling teeth, isn't it? But we're
Sometimes
also we're all
we're
so
all
busy.
we're all super busy though. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but for everyone who maybe doesn't know your background, Steve, can you
Mhm.
give us a little bit more of insight into yourself, and then also what was your first experience with the visitors?
Okay, well, I'm 73. I was born in San Francisco, just like Sulu. Sorry, been in the business too long, and I love Star Trek. So I was born there. Um, and stayed in San Francisco to about the time I was 11 years old or so, and moved to Pacifica, California, where I completed school, and then eventually in the 70s came to Hollywood to work in visual effects, and really to seek a career as a filmmaker, which was really difficult in those days. And so I got a steady job doing creatures and monsters and apes and old age and creature suits and you name it for all kinds of movies. I even got to do Leonard Nimoy's Years in '77 for Star Trek Motion Picture. But prior to that, growing up in San Francisco, we lived on 47th Avenue, which was like a few blocks from the beach, from Highway 1, very near the Cliff House. I could hear it from my bedroom at night. I could hear the seals on it. I could hear the buoys uh, and the sounds of the foghorns and the ships and everything. And it was San Francisco. It's in the suburbs, but it's still city, and there's still trolleys and things going around at those days. It was about 1958, and prior to that, I knew something was going on. just put it that way. But that night, I woke up because I couldn't hear anything. I thought it was almost like I lost my hearing or I was in a vacuum. Um, and it felt breathless, but I could breathe. And I looked over from the bed and I saw these beams of light searching my room through the windows, which made me very curious. It was like, what is that? I mean, I wasn't thinking aliens or anything like that. I was thinking, this is interesting. Being a curious kid and very drawn to science and astronomy and all those things in the night, I creeped out of bed, staying really close to the wall so that the lights couldn't see me. And then I got to the windowsill and I slowly crept up to the windowsill to look out to see where the lights were coming from. And the minute I did that, they were aware of me and they centered on me right away. And that kind of startled me. And I ducked down really fast and I looked for a place to hide around the room. There was my desk, so I scurried under my desk, hid under there, and watched the lights for a while. And then somehow they got in the room. They got in there and then found me underneath the desk. And then that's when I saw a shadow, and it was humanoid and a big head. And the next thing I knew, I woke up on the rug in front of my parents' bed. Because previous to that, evidently, I had been going in there to sleep with them because I was scared by whatever was going on during the night. They didn't want me doing that, so I would sneak in and lay down on the rug where they couldn't see me, just to be in there with them, and then sneak back in the morning. And that was my first experience. I didn't remember much beyond that, but I knew that all through my childhood, I knew that I had some sort of interaction with these people, and they would take me up to the sky at night, and I would play on their craft or whatever it was, and there would be other kids there too. But I sort of didn't recognize that as I got older as being something real. I never forgot the beams of light coming in the window and that whole experience. But the other stuff that I remembered, I figured that was my childhood imagination, making friends and imaginary friends and that kind of thing. So it wasn't until far later when I became more familiar with the territory, and after seeing a great deal of UFOs up close and with other witnesses and people around me, that then communion came out. And when I was reading that book, that's when the light bulb went on, and the rest is history.
No, I was just going to say, it's just really interesting to hear how a lot of people, just like you, have come to that connection, and especially communion being one of their first books too, and opening the door to, a lot of things, whether you realize it or not, and you later in life, and then some people still dealing with it like consciously from childhood up till now sometimes, and then finally have something just pop up out of nowhere to kind of like bring awareness to like what could actually be going on, so that's just really interesting to me, and especially communion being the forefront of opening people's eyes to a lot of it.
Yeah, and little did I know at the time that a few years later, Whitley Strieber would call me one night, and that was amazing, and we've been friends ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had the pleasure of interviewing Whitley, and I'll tell you what, like I told him at the end of the at the end of the interview, I said, I had an entire bingo card that just had Whitley Strieber on it, like throughout my entire life, and it looks like I hit the jackpot. I mean, it was great, and I'll tell you what, yeah, he did a lot to really bring awareness to the forefront, and
oh yes,
I have many of his books past communion, and there's still a few things that he talks about in his book. I'm like, holy crap! Like I had the same like dream / vision of one night of kind of like exactly what he's describing. So yeah, and I know that we get a lot of people that come out within this movement, new names, new faces, whistleblowers, and all that kind of stuff. But really, for me at least, Whitley is one of those guys that I can always look back to and say, okay, this is pretty legitimate, because he doesn't really say, hey, this is what it is. He still questions. And now some of the things that he talked about, where it was like he would just have these memories kind of like flash in sometimes of like when he was younger, not through like hypnotherapy or anything like that, but he would just, have these occurrences come back into his memory, and he would almost like relive them, like he's on a plane, and then suddenly he has this vision of him being on the plane and being taken aboard the craft, and there's all these military personnel and his father and stuff like that. And my question for you is because you talked about when you were a child and such, do you still have any past occurrences that just come into your memory? You're like, wow, I where did this come from? You know what I mean? Where it's just like a revelation of something that happened to you in the past still occur to this day?
Yeah, I do. Well, recently, I became friends with Susie Henson, and because I'm friends with Bob Solis and his wife Marilyn. They live very close by, and we've spent a lot of time with them. And when they were here one evening, they were listening to more of my story, and they said, you really need to read Susie Henson's book. And ironically, during the time they were telling me this, she just texted Marilyn, his wife. And so there was something going on there. So I trusted them. I got her book right away, and I read it. And the first couple of chapters is like breaking in to what she's all about and all that, and it's a little technical almost in like the second chapter into the thirdish. But by the time she hit the fourth chapter, I was reading things that just, I don't know if shocking would be the right word to use or description, but it just these emotions just flooded up. That, oh my God, that stuff that I never talked about, that I buried from my childhood's imagination, wasn't my imagination. Because she was describing going on the craft and being with other children, not all of them human. And what happened is it triggered me. And it triggered me, and I wasn't ready for it. Yes, I wasn't ready for it. And I had to put the book down and go outside in the backyard and have a nice cry. It was that strong. And so it's very doubtful that a good imagination would invoke such deep emotion. And the more I read through the book, the more it triggered memories that I had buried because I discounted them, and they came flooding back. And just like Whitley describes, I was reliving them at that moment, and it was so powerful. And I'm feeling it even now talking about it. It was so powerful that I couldn't deny the truth of it. For me, I don't care about proving it to anyone else. But so I'm writing to Susie, running over here to the other computer and writing to her and saying, oh my God, and we started sharing the whole comparisons and similarities, and I sending her artwork because she's describing things in the book that I had already illustrated back in the 90s for Yvonne Smith. She wanted me to illustrate everything that came to me, everything that came out in hypnosis, everything I remembered consciously, and I was constantly illustrating. And one of them was Susie was talking about what the soul looked like and how they cuddled the soul and would put these souls into women on Earth into the fetus growing inside of them, and that these souls agreed to do this. And there I had this really classic drawing. A lot of people have seen it, where I've got this gray standing over a woman sleeping, and you see her tummy's very large. She's pregnant, and he has this glowing hot blue sphere, and he's lowering it down to her stomach. And I sent that to Susie, and she just, she really reacted to it, because clearly I didn't know Susie back in 1994. I was totally unaware what was going on, and that wasn't all. So long way around of answering your question, John, was that, that's definitely happened to me and continues to happen. I have to be careful when I'm reading.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's all. The skeptic, okay, and we need skepticism, or else we're just going to be believing everything, and we need to have our own discernment, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it's a tough.
They don't promote that. They don't promote that, but we need to have our own discernment. And I think that what people, maybe I'll just say people in general, that maybe have not had experiences like we all have, including yourself.
No, they haven't.
Is that it's not the imagination. When it hits you at your core of your being, right? You're not like, wow, that was some crazy dream I just had, or, is there something in the water here that I just drank and it's making me no, because it shakes, like Daniel's had experiences like this, where it shakes your entire foundation. And it may be traumatic at first because you're not expecting it, right?
Right.
But again, if we sit down with it and we process it and we learn from it, then it's a positive thing. And then, so we have a lot of a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to our culture and the phenomena and people and experiencers and abductees and all that stuff, to where we really need to be able to learn from each other in sharing our experiences. That way, again, as I've always said, we all bring our little separate pieces of the puzzle together to try to make a complete picture. We probably never will, but still, every piece that interlocks with another one, like you were talking about you and Susie, okay, that helps complete that picture of understanding that we so desperately need. And so I thank you so much for sharing those experiences,
Yeah,
Steve, because
internal skepticism has always been something we've all struggled with. I know I have, and I literally press the visitors at times, and have more recently, despite everything I've seen, even standing face to face with one in my kitchen one night, fully awake. I still have this reserve, and I asked for something a bit more, something that because it's been a long time since that happened, and I see it and I remember it, but I need something else. And so what happened, and I'll make it short, but basically Mary woke up one night and couldn't find me, and I wasn't in bed, I wasn't in the bathroom, she couldn't find me anywhere in the house. But Mary's different than me, and she really didn't panic. And the voice inside her said, just go back to bed, he'll be back in the morning. And she told me about this the next morning, and I'm like, okay. I didn't know really what to make of it. It was a little unnerving, but not really. But I said, well, this really isn't enough for me. So a couple of weeks later, I get up to go to the bathroom, and I see Mary's not in bed. So I wait in bed. I wait for her to come back to bed before, because we just have one bathroom in this little place. And so I finally got up to see what was going on. Where is she? And she wasn't in the bathroom. So I went and looked in the living room. I think I went back to the bed, and I checked the bed. I wanted to pull the covers back and press on it with my hands and make sure she wasn't there. That somehow maybe I was just blind. I didn't know what. But I checked the whole house, and then finally I had to go so bad I went in and went to the bathroom. When I'm standing there, I'm starting to feel panic, because what if she doesn't come back? What's going to happen? And no one's going to believe, and I'm going to have to act like I'm covering something up, and they're going to know, and all this stuff went through my mind. And I finished going to the bathroom, and I go back into the bedroom, and there she is in bed. Now, I was fully conscious. It wasn't a dream, and it was just disturbing as hell. And I went and I got back in bed. I told her about it in the morning. That kind of did it for me, because there's no
not to
way.
interject again. Well, no,
Yeah.
no, there's no way. And that just reminds me of, again, going back to Whitley and his wife Anne, and she would, he would not be in the bedroom, and, and she would be like, oh, well, he just goes out into the forest, he just takes his little walk, but he'll be back. But it's just kind of one of those things where she's paralyzed. She can't move, but something's kind of telling her, don't worry about it, he'll be back. And so she just like goes back to sleep or whatever. And then, he has his interactions. He goes on the craft, whatever have you. And then, then he's back. It's eerily kind of similar. And this is,
Oh, yeah.
I've watched, ever since I was, again, a kid, I've always believed and not believed, known. Sorry, I got to correct myself on that. But, throughout the 80s and the 90s, X-Files, where it came down to, this is common with abductees and their families. This is very common. And just because it's that commonality doesn't mean that it's circular reporting. It means that there's actually something there. Right? There's a there.
That's
So
the title of my
again.
movie.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect segue. Perfect segue. Thank you for that. All right, guys.
So yeah, Steve, it's really cool that you got in touch with Susie. She's amazing. We've been in contact with her for about a year, and it was, oh gosh, I had an experience before we got her on the show, and it had been, I think it was around 4 months or so before we got her on. But somebody was like, "Hey, what are the beings that you're interacting with?" And the only word that came to mind was the elder. And I was like, the elders, that's the word. I don't know why, but that is. So they're like, hey, you should read this person's book, The Jewel Soul Connection. I really think that you might like it. And I was like, sure, I'll add it to the list. I started reading, and it was I could I could only get through like a quarter of a chapter and I have to put it down because I was like, this
Yeah.
is affecting me, and I don't know why it's affecting me, but it is. And um, we eventually got in touch with Susie. I had her on the show, and she was like, "You need to meet this person, Jeff Silver, and other
Yeah.
things." After kind of sharing about our stuff, but yeah, it was so interesting how uh, her book just kind of leaped off the page subconsciously almost. And after talking with Susie, she was like, "Yeah, this is what the beings said would happen. That there would be people that would read it, and it would unlock elements of them that are on craft that don't have access to, but it would
Time
feed that."
release.
Mm-hmm.
This is all meant to happen at the specific time, and it's always been that way.
Yep. Time release.
And
Yeah.
and release and recently, I mean, I had an experience again just last week, and um, I had little glimpses of it, and but I knew something happened, and I knew because it took me 3 days to get over it, but I could not remember, and they said, not now. You can't remember it now, but I could feel whatever it was that was shared with me, but I couldn't define it. And every time I tried to break into it, I start to feel nauseated. Not real bad, but just a little bit. Come on, real slow, and it's like, okay, I don't want to press that.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
good.
They are. Yeah. I remember there was it was
It's
I had
hypnosis.
yeah. I'd shared with Susie my encounter I had where they came into my body and they spoke through me. It was a whole thing. I didn't believe in channeling before, and
Me
I have
neither.
all these notes on it. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, when they had that interaction, John actually sensed them when he was asleep. He told me hours after because I didn't really believe it. I was like, did this actually happen to me, or was this maybe something?
It's
And then he tells
understandable.
me hours later, hey,
Yeah, I was
but
dreaming. I was dreaming, and in the dream, I saw this spirit that I knew was Daniel somehow, even though I didn't see facial features or body structure of Daniel. It was just automatic. It was like this, kind of like this black void, and then within this black void is the spirit that I know as Daniel, and then next to him was this bluish kind of figure, this illuminating bluish figure, probably the soul of whatever entity. And there was this interaction that I can't describe. It wasn't verbal, it wasn't physical, but there was an interaction between the two as they're looking at each other. And I instantaneously knew, okay, Daniel's having some kind of contact. And shortly after that, I woke up and then I texted him, and he told me about his experience. So we can, I don't know, remote view or view on a different realm or density, if you will, or whatever have you. I don't know how this stuff works, right? I'm human. I'm just still trying to figure this stuff out.
He had your cosmic phone number.
That's
yeah,
it. That's it. We were sharing the line,
yeah,
and
Yeah, because we're all connected.
those things. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We are all one. That's right. And so, sorry to interrupt. I just had to give it
No,
a little
that's
bit more
okay.
on that
no,
because
thank
it's just
you.
mind
No,
blowing. It's just mind
thanks for
blowing when you have those things, you know,
yeah, it is. And you also sense that I was like you saw like my body was like convulsing.
vibrating.
Yeah,
We were
Yeah.
vibrating.
it was. I was like it was a lot of it was a lot for me in my body. And so anyway, I was getting to the point of just the information was deposited in me that I don't know what it is, but all I knew is there was like I have stuff in me now. I don't know what to call this, but there's something here now. And I talked to Susie. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's like a time packet. Just
Yeah.
it'll unlock when it unlocks. Don't force it. Don't try to it. It's meant for something. Just
Yeah, if you do,
keep
you
it."
might feel sick to your stomach like I do. So I do.
Yeah,
And I never get sick to my stomach, really. I mean, I can
yeah,
almost count on one hand how many times I've had nausea. So,
yeah. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting stuff. But Christian,
No, I just wanted to say that, it's also happened with me and Daniel where I had like a sleep paralysis episode, and he is in the middle of the night, and he's just like 2, 3 in the morning. He's like, "You okay?" And I didn't tell him anything, so I was just already like confused from the experience of what I was going through and feeling the presence of something in the room with me. And then Daniel, just minutes later in the middle of the night, for no reason, just like, "Hey, what's going on?" You know, but it with my experiences, kind of like when you were talking about how it's been so much time, and sometimes even though you remember and recollect that experience, you want something to kind of like tap you back in again, just so you can like feel it. And
Yeah,
I've had
a
experiences
refresh.
like that. Exactly. And I, I've personally just had experiences that I want to like tap back into a refresh. And sorry, my cat's jumping on me, but
Oh
um,
boy,
yeah,
cats and
and
dogs
one,
living in the street. Total harm in the beginning.
oh yeah, and there's one time I saw somebody using dowsing rods for like spirit communication, and I tried them, and when I first got them, nothing happened, and then when I tried a little later, after like with the intent of love, connection, those kinds of feelings, they started responding right away. And I called my girlfriend in the room. She's never seen anything like that. Started recording it. They were answering all kinds of questions. I was asking about my previous experiences. Did they really happen? And my girlfriend recorded this, and they're like, "Yes, they happened. That really happened. Do ETs exist? Yes. Is there unconditional love on the other side? And they're like, yes." And then I've tested this with John too, and they've shown us that the the multi-dimensional aspect of this all is, it doesn't really matter. Like, they would answer our rods simultaneously. Like, you can actually see them. Like, it didn't matter whatever we were communicating with spirit. In this case, we asked a couple of questions, and it was saying that it was my grandmother who had passed, is what it was telling me. But um, there is this inevitable connection between consciousness, what happens after we die, and these beings. And these beings seem to know the answer to that as well, as what I've
Absolutely.
gathered. And because of that awareness, it's really normal for them to do that. So like, in Susie's
Yeah.
book, when she talks about, having the spirit of a being going to inhabit her son, and that's going to be her son in this lifetime. They know. So it's just weird, because I never thought, looking into near-death experiences, that it would bring me into the UFO phenomenon when I first started, even though I
Yeah.
believed beforehand. So I just find all of it fascinating. Every single one of your stories is fascinating.
No.
Every time you tell it.
Well, there's been a lot of resistance in the past, and
Yeah.
still some where people say, I'm not making this connection, and you've lost me, goodbye." And
Yeah.
they're not related. It's there's guys from other planets coming in metal ships, and that's what it is. And being dead is
Yeah.
being dead, and da 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 da. But we're so used to being in our culture, in our upbringing, being told that when we die, we cease to exist.
Right.
Despite religions, most of the people that are very involved in religions, they know that there's supposed to be an afterlife, but they really don't believe it. They believe science, who tells them that when your brain ceases to function, and electrical activity ceases to exist, and your heart stops beating, you're done. You're gone. And we know, and you know, especially from studying near-death experiences, and I have too, and I've even had a very odd one that happened at kind of a backwards near-death experiences. But to make a
Mm-hmm.
point is that we are so consumed with dying that we don't realize we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a problem. And it's been kept from us
Yeah, I
by
agree.
our own
Yeah.
people.
Can you go into a little bit more detail what that experience was for you, Steve?
Yeah, I've done this before in other shows, and it's always a hard one to do, but I'll keep it short. I just worked on a movie called Battle Beyond the Stars. I had been out with someone that night. My girlfriend Judy was not staying with me that night. She was staying at a friend's house, and I came back home because Karen and I both worked on the film. Karen left, and I had a message on my machine from her, and I was so exhausted. I figured I'll talk to her in the morning. I went to bed. I was 26. She was 24. She didn't have any health issues, and that I knew of, and she didn't know of either. But I went to bed, and I had this dream. It was around 6 in the morning. I had to get up pretty early to go to the premiere. It was a Roger Corman movie, as I said. It was called Battle Beyond the Stars. And the dream was vivid, to say the least. And I was floating in this, it was like zero G, and I was floating, and there were clouds with colored light running through them all around me, and this music, this ambient music. It was beautiful. It didn't really have a tune, but it was just there, this lovely, serene sound. And out of the fog, the clouds, came Judy, and Judy was only wearing a pair of underpants, which I thought was odd, even in the dream. And she came to me, and before I go further, she was a skeptic of my understanding about UFOs and the paranormal and ghosts and all that kind of stuff. But she was very sweet about it, and she teased me about it. And what she did was come up to me and tell me how much she loved me, and that she had to go, that she'd never felt more wonderful than she does now, and not to worry about her and not to be sad, but I just had to tell you, you were right about the aliens, which, made me laugh because it was so ridiculous, so absurd. She said, you were right about the aliens, and they are here. I think that was the exact, you're right about the aliens, they're here. She says, I love you, and I have to go. And she hugged me, and we twirled kind of in zero G, and then she backed away from me and disappeared into the clouds. When I got home from the premiere, there was a message on my machine that she had died during the night. It was early in the morning. She evidently had a brain aneurysm and rolled off the couch she was sleeping on, and she was found laying on the floor in her panties, and she was nude other than that. And, that's no coincidence. So it made me very ill. For 2-3 weeks, I stayed at Karen's house, and she nursed me back to health. I couldn't keep anything down. It's like I had food poisoning. I've never experienced any kind of sickness quite like that before. Everybody wanted me to go to hospital. I didn't want to go. And slowly but surely, I lost a ton of weight. I was like a skeleton by the time I got well again. And I don't know what that was from, because I did go out to eat dinner. A very close friend, came to get me that night, take me out to dinner to an Indian food restaurant, which we loved. And we both ordered the same thing, so they brought us a big bowl and we both ate from it. And so it couldn't have been food poisoning, because he didn't get sick at all. And I've been eating there for a long time, and they always were fine. So I get the feeling that was a result of being pulled out of my body, because she must have pulled me out. She found me in the dream and pulled me out of my body, and I was completely out of it, and then put back in, and the whole shock of the whole thing made me very ill, but I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I'm very grateful for her doing that, because I think she wanted me to know that this is real.
Yeah, it's very validating. And when my grandmother first passed away, and we got back from the hospital and I went to sleep, I was the only one, and I was starting to learn about this stuff at this time. So it didn't affect me like it did everyone else, and I had called a friend of mine, and I told her, she's like, yeah, someone who I would call like a gifted person. She just knows things. And so I would speak to her, whenever I had like weird things going on. And I was like, I'm not crying, like everyone's losing it. And I understand, why. And, she was like, because you understand. And as soon as I got home, I just went to sleep, very lucid dream. And my grandmother, very young, shows up to me, and she's like, it feels good. And then she throws herself on the bed, and then I wake up, immediately, and I had another dream where, a woman who, for, lack of a better term, just looked hybrid, like human enough, but not human. really big eyes. And she says, we have the ability to communicate in dreams. And sometimes it's easier for us to communicate this way.
Yeah, it sure is.
So it's just like, and because I'm starting to think, when you sleep, you're astral, so it's a lot easier for them to come through to you, sometimes. And you're kind of out of your own way, like that.
Yeah, you're in their
That
playground.
lizard brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I 100% believe that, 110%.
My mom told me a story before that happened about how one night she was sleeping in bed and her grandmother came in and sat on the bed, and you got it. She told a whole story how much she loves her and I got to go and all this stuff. The next thing my mom knows is she's jolted out of sleep. She thought she was awake, but the phone was ringing in the hallway, and because we didn't, back then that was in the 40s, so the phones were on a cord, a very short cord, and it was in the hallway. And she heard my grandmother answer it because it was during the night, and she started crying, and she came in and she said, "Honey, your grandma just died." And my mom never forgot that. My mom was very quiet about all this stuff. We didn't talk about it. She didn't talk about it. She tried to hide a lot from me. She later opened up before she died, but she had that. So, I said before it runs in the family, but it really runs in all of us. I just think that some of us are more open to it, and the spirits know that, and so they can come in and communicate better.
And the mundane world interrupts our sensitivities, I guess you could say, or I could say, more often than we realize.
These brains do. These brains
Yes.
limit us.
Yes.
Like the same way our PCs limit us. I wish we had more power, more memory, bigger chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was working, and my dad was living in a separate state. I had just moved in with Melissa down in Mississippi, and he was still in Ohio. And, he had a rough life, and he didn't make good decisions, but he was adopted, and he had 6 other siblings, and they were split up between different families. At any rate, he just calls me when I'm at work one night, and he's just like, "Hey, John, I was sitting on my chair watching TV, and, my brother came up to me, and it was so good to see Jack again, and he'd been dead for a long time. He told me, hey, Mike, sorry that I wasn't there for you as a brother during the years when we were all going into foster homes, but I love you." And then he said, Mom showed up and his dad showed up, and he said, we're really sorry. We love you so much. It's so good to see you, and we'll see you again soon. And even with, like I said before, with my background of just being like, I've always known, the mundane world, that brain was just like, okay, I'm at work. Wow, Dad, that's a really great stories. It's not that I didn't believe him. It just didn't really have much of an impact on me. And then lo and behold, like later at the end of that week, he died. And it was like they were visiting him to say, we welcome you, whether they were the actual spirits, because, reincarnation, I believe in it. Who knows what the time frame is on that? Time has no meaning anyway. Or whether it was an entity taking the form of his loved ones. Doesn't really matter, because I believe it's all tied in together. But even me, I'm just going, oh, that's a great story. And then when he passes on, I'm like, holy crap, they were telling him. Hit you like
a ton of bricks.
It does. It does. And, so timing is, again, time doesn't exist, but it does for us in our illusions. Time in our illusion, timing is kind of everything, and it's just something like that. And, that, again, when you know. And it's just that experience that you talked about, Steve, and I was going to be like, oh, my gosh, what was it? Battle Beyond the Stars? I'm like, I looked it up while you were talking, and I was like, holy crap, it was 1980. I was like, 1980? I remember that movie now. I haven't seen it since like 1980. But, that, The Last Starfighter and all that stuff I grew up with as a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to see that
Don't
again. Not to make it
laser
light.
blasts.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
I played the alien at the beginning that gets killed by the weird little critters.
Excellent. I'll have to watch that again.
It's a hoot. It's fun.
not to switch gears to a less personal level, but I guess it is. So let me go ahead and retract that. Since you work in this industry with Hollywood and special effects and sculpting and character design and all that stuff, has because we've interviewed other people like Grant Cameron, where he says he just gets these downloads. Okay, as an artist, because that is what you are, and I'm an artist as well, although I haven't worked
Oh.
on anything for a long time. But as an artist, have you ever had that experience or that download to where you're like, I must create this
Sure.
because of, yeah, and
Yeah.
have you tried to take that creation and put it forth to people in the industry? And if so, what reactions have you gotten? Have you got a positive, negative, neutral, both sides?
No. Well, Whitley and I tried back in the 90s. We shot a film based on his stuff, and we did like a short film. His agent hated it and didn't want anybody to see it for some reason. Um, I wrote a series called Night Work that was about a talk show host like Art Bell. It was basically character was based off of Jeff Rentz because Jeff Rentz and I was on his show a lot back in those days, and it was cool. And I had a number of scripts, and we got it to some people that wanted to back it. They wanted to put X amount of $1 million in it, but the changes they wanted me to do to it were so severe and so Hollywood and so boring and just, making it into more action and less depth. In other words, you take the outer limits and you take out all the story to it and just have the monsters. So I said no, I turned it down. It made everybody mad at me because they were all hoping that they would have a nice steady job working on a show and all that. But basically they were just going to take my idea, give me money and tell me get lost. And I said no. And I turned down a lot of money. Um, but I've done that before. Every time I've ever tried to get this subject matter looked at to be turned into a film, they want to either change it or they're not interested at all. So by the time my late wife was just hated the subject, she hated what it did to our lives, and she told me to get out of it if she's going to leave because we had people, literally men in black, going to the studios I worked at and telling them that I was a criminal and not to work with me. This came back to me from one of the producers who called me up and said, "Are you in trouble with the law?" That between being followed, a black helicopter circling the house, and all that stuff, and our mail being sent back with checks in it for people trying to buy things from my little company I called Dreamland Effects, where we sold sculptures and miniatures of the Greys and things I was doing. Um, she was terrified, and then she started seeing things. She didn't believe me either. She thought I was having a midlife crisis, but when she started seeing things too, she thought that I was making her crazy. And so, make a long story short, I quit in 1999. I never looked back. I stayed in touch with Yvonne and Roger and Whitley, Roger Lear, Yvonne Smith. Didn't really talk about it to her. And then her breast cancer came back and killed her. She was done by 2013. And some time later, I met Mary. I moved up to Ventura, California. Mary said, "Why don't we open up a studio?" And so we did. We still have it 12 years later, little 2,000 square foot studio, upstairs, downstairs, offices, stage space. We did a lot of making and artistry there. But we made this film early on called But Something Is There, which chronicles some of my experience because it's all I could do. The original film was like 54 minutes long, and then I cut it down to a director's cut. I'm not sure I should have done that because I'm putting both of them back out. Let people decide. But it had Whitley in it, who introduces the story, the film. It's a film. It's not a documentary. Some people say it's kind of like a docudrama, but it really is a film. And so I did this film about my experiences. The reason it was called But Something Is There because we couldn't come up with a title. And one night we were with Whitley and he was talking to a bunch of people, and he said, we don't, like you were saying earlier, Daniel, is that we really don't know for sure. When he was saying that on stage, and he was saying, we don't really know for sure, but something is there. And Mary and I just sort of looked at each other and said, that's the title. He doesn't remember doing that. I give him credit for the title. And the ending of the film came about as a result of me being on the phone with Whitley in the backyard at night, and I'm looking up at the stars and talking to Whitley, and I said, I don't like the ending for the film. I need a better ending. I don't know what to do. And he says, well, think about it. You'll come up with something. And I'm looking over this way, and I see this looked like a Romulan battle cruiser is the best way to describe it. This warping light effect, like something coming out of a heat wave, and it was this big triangle, and it was completely silent, and it flew towards me and over the roof of the house. It was completely silent, and I recreated that at the end of the film, and that became the ending of the film. And I remember my exasperation telling Whitley about what I'm seeing. And, of course, everybody yelled at me. Why didn't you, get it on the phone? The phone would have showed 3 twinkling little lights, because it would never, the iPhone never would have picked up back then the outline of the triangle, which was just, jaw dropping. It was very similar to what's behind my head there. The lights on the points weren't quite as bright, and they're also dimmer, and they were kind of twinkling. It was really something. And so that's when I came back onto the scene, was after that after we made that film.
Good. Yeah, the phenomenon was like, I'll give you an ending. Here you go. And then, again, they listen.
Yeah,
if you
they
have
said,
that intent.
After I was walking into the house, I got off the phone with Whitley. As I was just getting to the sliding door, I heard in my head, there's still hope. Don't give up. And so that was the last thing you see in the film.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The film's on the channel, and it's been seen a lot. It's been at film festivals. It's been all over the place. But when we shot that film, I had a full crew. I worked with people from the industry that I've known for a long time. The DP, Paul Gentry, was, he worked on so many big movies as a director of photography. He claims I got him into the business. Maybe I did. I don't know. I introduced him to a lot of people, and he just started working. This isn't that, he worked on Laser Blast. It got everybody started, even V. Neill. But he volunteered to shoot and brought all of his equipment in, and his motion control unit and everything else. So we had a really nice setup to shoot that film, and I think it shows. So
It does. I remember watching it. I'm like, there's some good production behind this. This is awesome. So that's cool.
Going back to your original question, John, I think you asked me, is that they were never going to let me make a film like that. And here we were living in the digital age, and I've been doing visual effects for History Channel and all these studios with Lightwave, and I said, we can make the film and not have them influencing it and giving the grays teeth, and holding me down with large pieces of dental dam and have me screaming, I give you fire in the sky. So, that's typical of what they do. And
me and my girlfriend now, like every time we're watching something and then they make it fear-based, we kind of like look at each other and roll our eyes. We do. And it's sad, because it's like, if we had more films like that, like now, and there are some good ones that you can find, but if we had more of that, like the community is a lot more receptive to it now. Like there are more people starting to have this awareness now about this thing. I'm surprised. I'm like bumping into people, and we start a conversation and it ends up being like about consciousness. And I'm like, people are starting to get it. Like, I think it's around now. And have you ever, I know you mentioned talking and meeting Whitley and talking to Susie, but specifically in the business industry, have you ever come across, aside from like Spielberg, other people having similar experiences to such as yourself?
But there's a list up online. You can actually research that. And Mary had that the other day, and it was surprising, some of the people that are in there. I can't recall them right now, but, Whitley and we talk weekly. and I mean, last night we were chatting back and forth, Mary and me and him, and he was telling some good jokes, and we're having a good laugh, and we stay in touch constantly, and we have ever since I met him. I spent a lot of time with Whitley, and I'm really grateful for that. In fact, he's going to be our Halloween special this year, so
Oh, that's awesome.
we haven't decided what kind of fun we're going to have with the show, but he's quite the prankster, and so we'll see what he comes up with. So after all, it is Halloween, our favorite holiday.
Yeah.
It is mine, and
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. Halloween is a superior holiday.
Yes,
oh
it
sure,
is.
oh yeah. I mean, Addams Family, the
Oh, it's the best.
Munsters, Wednesday,
Mhm.
Yeah.
all of it. So it's there's a reason for that too,
Hmm.
that it's our favorite holiday.
Before we started recording, talking about the outer limits, it's interesting, and it's one of the questions that I have personally on a personal level. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there for you as well. It's kind of interesting how in the outer limits and other sci-fi shows, where you have these aliens that are all mishmashed, and I know that a lot of times the costume designs may or may not, maybe not a lot of times, but may or may not be based off of earlier witness interviews and information that
Mm-hmm.
was leaked out here and there. Like buckwheat pancakes kind of stuff. And it's just kind of, but you didn't really see the gray alien visage during that time. You maybe had some that were kind of similar, like in the original Star Trek series. I don't know what the entity was called, but they were like a blue face, but they weren't really the gray alien. It was only until like maybe the 70s, mid 70s, early 80s to onward where it's grown to where we have the gray or a tall white alien visage like the what you have behind you.
Yeah.
And I start contemplating about that with Melissa, my fiance, contemplating that, like, why is that? It's one of those questions that we may never have an answer to. My little theory is that they appear to us to whatever we can expect them to look like. But are we having that influence on them, or are they having that influence on us? It's a shared influence. And like I even thought, I've asked others on this show before, is that there a possibility that they're featureless? A lot of them are featureless because our imagination is different now than it was during the time of the outer limits. And so they're kind of a blank slate, like a mannequin almost, whether mechanical or biomechanical or whatever have you. And we've put that influence on them. You see what I'm kind of saying there, Steve?
Yeah, I do. And I've thought about that a great deal. But when I go back and I look at ancient artwork, and especially with the indigenous peoples of Australia, the
Yes.
Aboriginals, there's
Yes.
unquestionably artwork that depicts the Greys as we know them today, going way back, thousands
That's a
of
Thank
good
you
years.
for
point.
pointing that out.
And then you've got Barney and Betty Hill. That was 61. And, there's controversy about, well, they weren't really Greys because they didn't have the black eyes. But what I know about the black eyes is that those are covers, and they're not always
That,
worn. And when they're not
that's come
worn,
up a lot.
yeah, I mean, look at the Fourth Kind, Whitley's book,
Yes.
and what's really fun about that is I had this image I had made because I remember her standing over me and pulling off one of them, and I did an image of that, and it was almost identical to what's on the Fourth Kind, the Fourth Mind. So there is that too. And then the other thing that always gets me about considering what you're talking about, because I've considered it and it's very uh, acceptable to me, is that I don't know for sure, but I really got a gut feeling that we've had bodies and we have bodies, and there's been some pretty good evidence of that. And more recently, the alien interview, which was the rocket video.
Yes.
Yeah, Whitley and I were interviewed for that in the day. I don't like their edit because they made both of us say that it was real when we didn't. We said it could be real. It's very, very close to what we know. But more recently, there's been more information about that, and it's looking more and more like that is actually a real video of a real gray. It might be. I underline might, but I always felt it was for some reason, some gut thing. In fact, Whitley and I are both kind of traumatized by that video when they showed it to us because we hadn't seen it, and they sat us down and they put the cameras on us to get a reaction. And it was disturbing because I just, part of me wanted to tear those people apart that had that gray.
Yes. Yes.
And like, you know, you're hurting one of my own, and I don't like you for that. And so there's been that, and then more recently, if you've read The Fourth Mind and you know about the autopsy report that was released on Reddit, and the details in that, if it is faked, the person actually did have
Knowledge.
intimate knowledge of their physiology, which means they are physical and they do look like that, and they've even removed the eye covers off them in that situation. So that's all stuff to consider. I do know that the night I got up at 3 a.m. because I was thirsty, and I woke up, I knew something had happened. I just wanted to go in the kitchen, and I walked into the kitchen, and there's this enormous butcher block that my late wife had to cut meat and onions and all that kind of stuff on. And it's right in front of the refrigerator, and it's heavy. And I couldn't understand why she would do that. And I looked down at it, and then the legs moved, and that broke whatever was going on in my mind. I think I was projecting that screen image because I couldn't accept what was really there. My mind couldn't. The brain, separate from me, it was protecting me, and there it was. This one of the episodes I did on myself shows that moment. I wish I could have recreated it better, but it does get it across. It was so tiny, and it was just looking up at me, and we had this moment. It was like and it just went straight through the refrigerator like a blur. And then I ran to the living room, which is where it should have came out, and it wasn't there. And I was fully awake. That was not a dream memory. I was standing right there in front of her, and you just don't forget things like that. So,
Yeah.
It reminds me of I just did a recording with Jeff yesterday on his channel. We were talking about specifically one of his encounters. It was an encounter he said outside of time, and then they inserted him back. And when they closed that,
yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
yeah, he said that's where he remembered a wizard. Like, but he's like, it wasn't them giving him that image, it was his own mind filling in that blank, because then that part of what was going on that was removed, so then his brain had to insert something that could also what a lot of people's different descriptions of what they look like could be them just your brain inserting that detail.
Yeah, the legs of the butcher block was in that lighting. There was a night light on that was kind of yellow tan, and so everything had this warm yellow to it, and not very bright, but bright enough that I could see the wood, and it was that color, the color of wood. And but when it became the gray also was tan, very much like the book cover behind you. The head was bigger, and it was that same color. So I get the feeling that when my mind first saw it, and it saw these two legs standing there, because I was looking down as I walked in, my mind said, oh, it's the butcher block, and that's what it became until it moved, and then there wasn't a butcher block anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a shared influence, personally.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a shared influence. Like, oh, he's gonna think it's a butcher block. He thinks I'm a butcher block. Okay, I'm a butcher block. And then your brain goes, okay, butcher blocks can't move, and then the illusion's kind of broken.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that we're so interconnected. Again, everything is one. That we're so interconnected that it's a codependency, and I don't mean in a negative way, but like we depend upon each other for interaction and probably survival. I'm sure, because everything has a ripple effect.
Everything in the universe survives on each other.
That's right.
It's dependent on each other. You
That's
know,
right.
the position of the planets, everything. I mean, this Earth is in such a
Everyone,
fragile orbit. One little thing gets out of order in this solar system, and we're in trouble.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
they're
And
all
here we are dropping
self-dependent.
nukes. You know. And here we are dropping
Mm,
nukes. You know.
not for
Yep.
long, not for long. And
Mm,
you know, if they ever try to fire one, I think they're going to find it's not going to function.
yeah.
yeah. There was a doctor who was talking about that, who's had a lot of encounters with patients having NDEs and telling him, like, why did you save me? Some of them didn't want to leave. But I come to find he knew some other stuff. And he was talking about UFOs and nukes and all the occurrences of them interfering um, after Hiroshima, that they seem to think that we can't launch them anymore because something keeps showing up, even for like nuclear tests that aren't like intentional. They're just tests, and they're still showing up and like stopping them and stuff like that, which is I find fascinating.
Yeah, the James Fox documentary, Out of the Blue. There's a there's a scene in there where the missile doesn't have a warhead in it, but they're simulating a launch, and the UFO comes in and it strikes it over and over again until it breaks up. I did those effects way back then in Lightweight, but I never forgot that one. The thing, though, I have a real problem with is this. I can't even count how many nuclear tests we did after World War II. In the upper atmosphere, underground, on the ground. Why were those allowed? Um, why
Yeah,
weren't
that's a
those
good
stopped?
question.
You know, I
Thank
just
you. The
was it
ocean testing. Hmm.
is it so we could be more aware of the horrific damage that those things do to the environment and to people? Over time, so many people that were near those tests all died of cancer. They did not expect that
Mm,
fully. Um, and I just hope we're not testing those things anymore. I don't
yeah,
think we can, but you know, it's got to stop. It will be stopped. I know that deep inside that it will be stopped. It will not be allowed anymore. And if they
yeah,
even try, I wouldn't want to be them.
With your channel breaking the silence and
Mm.
you recreating experience or accounts, um, how has that process been? Was there anything that really stood out to you that really was deeply impactful for the experiencer and you? And yeah, how has that affected you, kind of doing that?
It's not routine, but when when we're filming someone and they're describing things, I really have a tendency to see it, and so I know what I'm going to do. Some of them react to it. In fact, a lot of them react to it and feel it was very close to what they experienced, um, and that's good because I know I'm on the right track. But I've been there. But then again, I haven't been in their experience. But they're so similar with the people that we've been bringing in front of camera. But the thing that is interesting is I made that one film. Uh, I made two films. One was The Keep, which was the fictional sci-fi about the guy staying in a lighthouse, and this huge storm hits, and I don't want to give it away what happens at the end, but it definitely has to do with this subject. It was very popular. In fact, we just had a screening of it at a local film festival, and I got to see it on a real theater screen, and it was amazingly powerful. But the one that really stands out, and I wish I had entered in that film festival, was not that one. It's the one called The Invited. And it was just sort of a stream of consciousness of something that it was one of those things you talked about. It came into my head and I had to do it. So I sat down at the computer, no script, nothing. It just went from A to B to C to D. And that film really affected me, the ending. It was very emotional, and it did a lot of the community, but yet it was fictional, but it was all based on real experience. And although I've never driven out to the desert and met with them that I know of, because there's always that. But that film really resonated for a lot of people because it was also very positive. It was, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, it's on the channel. It's very short. It's called The Invited. This guy's at his house, in his office, and he's getting these visions of this road somewhere out in the desert, and he goes out there, and they come, and he goes with them.
I've seen that one. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a very happy story.
yeah.
Right now, I have Deborah Cobble's story to do, and I recorded 2.5 hours of her accounting her experience. And if you're not familiar with Deborah Cobble, you will be familiar with Bud Hopkins and his book, The Intruders, which was really her book. It was about her case. The two-part miniseries was based on. She's a friend, and her book, the new one that she released about 3 years ago, brings her up to date, brings you up to date on her experience and how she's evolved with that experience, which is beautiful. It's an incredible book. It's called Extraordinary Contact. Extraordinary Contact, and it's basically an upgraded version of the original book, Intruders. So I have her to do, and that was going to be a real hard one to do because it's, so many things happened to her visually. I've been doing so many. I just Dr. Irina Scott's experience just recently, and I'm seeing now over here that Irina is reacting to it. I haven't opened the email yet, but from what I can see, thank you immensely for the terrific video. That's all
She
I can
loves it.
see of it. Yeah, yeah. That's always rewarding because
Yes.
you try to recreate what they recalled. And even if it's not 100% accurate, as long as it captures the atmosphere of it and the feeling,
Yes.
that's what's most important. So that's been quite a journey, and I've done so much of it. It's all kind of a blur right now. We have over 250 videos. Not all of them are films with people who have these experiences, but a lot of them are. And there's been some doozies. I think Judy Goldschmidt's encounters, um, that one, every time I watch it, and even when I was editing it, and even when I was shooting her on camera, and Earl Grey Anderson was right there with me when she talked about the end. At the end of her film, she talks about Petal, the little hybrid baby that was hers that she was holding, and what its importance was to us in the world.
She hands me one of the bundles that had been sitting on those shelves. She puts it in my arms, and I look down at it, and it's a baby swaddled in a blanket. It's a baby. And it has overly large eyes, and it's very skinny. But I look in those eyes, and my mother instincts, they kick in. And I know she's mine. She tells me to name her, and I do. I name her Petal. And I know she's my child. So then the beings escort me down away from them, and I realize then that the room also contains a bunch of small round white tables that just grow out of the floor. And there's little white chairs next to them that grow out of the floor. And I sit at one of them. And I notice that there's other people there, men and women, holding little bundles, looking at them, just loving them. And I realize that's why I'm there.
It just brings down the house. It brings us all to tears. It's very emotional. So that was a hard one. And then the Jackrabbit case with Susan Alloway is another one of my favorites, and it's the same thing. She has a very similar interaction with the being, and it really gets your emotions when the being says, "I am you, and you are me, and we are all the same." I don't know if the Gray stole that from John Lennon or not, but it wasn't quite the same. I am you, and you are me, and we are all together. But it was just really something. It really grabs you. So it's been and continues to be quite an experience to do this channel and to ignore the algorithm's desires for us to be more commercial and more sensational, so that we can get more revenue and all that stuff. And we're not doing that. We don't even tell people to like and subscribe, because that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this to reach the community I know is out there, the community that of people in the first wave, second wave, and now the third wave that Susie wrote about in her book. And very slowly but surely, as trust gets built, because people are so used to being burned that have these experiences, that community is growing, and that's really a beautiful thing. And I have to thank Mary for that, because she was the one that originally envisioned the whole concept of breaking the silence, and has been organizing the whole thing from the get-go, and keeping the schedule filled with amazing and brilliant people to come on the show.
That's awesome. Yeah, please, everyone, go over to his channel and subscribe, watch their videos. They'll be fantastic. And Steve, just being conscientious of your time, I know you have other stuff to do, but was there anything else that you're wanting to let people know about website-wise? I know you have your personal art website, but was there anything else that you're wanting to share?
Personal website, the Art of Steve Neill, or whatever it's called. I can't remember right now. That I've had that for over a decade, maybe more, and it chronicles my entire career, plus more recently my work with this subject matter as well. And you can see all the pictures of movies I worked on and the things I did for him there. Most of our films are listed there, but not the films, the movies that I've actually made, live action films, but some of the animated ones too. So it's kind of a fun place to go, but there's a lot to look at. So, but if anyone else has any questions they'd like to ask before I
don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say it's been an honor. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today, and thank you for being willing to say no, and continue to get the correct message out there, because there's so much positive and interconnection, that message of interconnection between all of us, that we have to really understand before the next step. And it's great to meet someone who's actually making stuff that's inspiring people and encouraging people to get that message across. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Steve, time, again, it was an illusion. We're stuck with it, though, at the moment. And so I understand that your time is definitely valuable, and I want to thank you for, spending some time with us today.
Well,
and
absolutely.
I know that, thank you. And I know that our viewers will definitely come away with something with this interview and this discussion. And please, I want people to go ahead and chime in below in the comments. It's... I feel like we could, if time wasn't an issue, that we could talk for 24 hours and share our experiences, because we have so many vast experiences. I know you still do as well, that we just were unable to cover during this time slot. And I hope
there's always another time.
Thank you. And I do hope that you'll grant that to us again.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. My health has kind of been a little weird, so I've been off the channel here for a good 2 months. But you know what? First time I've been back since then, and I can't think of a better guest to have than what we've had today. And I want to thank you so much, Steve.
You're very welcome.
A cornucopia of thanks. And so keep doing what you're doing. Rock on, and
I plan to.
Love you, man.
We love you too. We really do.
The more experiences that we share, whether it resonates with somebody or it doesn't, we're still getting the message across. And again, I'm big about the puzzle pieces, although I don't really put together puzzles. But, the puzzle pieces to where we share these experiences, not because, at least me personally, not because maybe one day I have a book deal, but because it can resonate or make one other person, just one, say, wow, you know what? That same thing or something similar happened to me. I'm not alone. There's something to this. There's something there, right?
Yeah.
And just bring it, make more cohesion to it, to inspire, to make things real and make them think, you know what, I'm not alone. Because there's still so many people out there that feel like they're alone. They're embarrassed to talk about their experiences.
Oh, I get emails all the time about that. Thank you. I don't feel so alone now.
Yep.
Yes.
But John, you know what's really going on here?
Hmm.
And this is what's the beauty of it. And I don't think I quite realized that till I read Susie Hansen's book. But what's happening here is they were all part of this, or all part of a program. We're all individuals involved with them from the get-go, and we're finding each other and coming together as a family.
Yep.
And that's what's supposed to happen, and that's what's terrifying the hell out of the people in power, because they have no control over it. That the people that have had these experiences for so long are part of some kind of program, and they're starting to come together, and it's obviously loving and peaceful, and they're trying to turn this around and say that this is a threat, and we know it's not. We know who the threat is, and it's not us. It's the people in power. But the beautiful thing is that for so long this has been planned, and it's coming together now. That's how I feel. And I met all of you today. I meet people constantly as a result of our channel that are all coming together, that all have these experiences, and we're all interacting with each other. And at one time, we were all kids playing on board that craft, just like so many of us remember.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, I when I had a personal Zoom with Susie and we were talking, I remember she was talking about something, and all of a sudden I'm just like, it was weird. It was like I was drawn into like a hyper focus, and then I remembered being on a craft with Susie up there talking, and she was on the left-hand side, and I'm in the crowd. That's all I remember. It was like a flash, and I was like,
In the auditorium,
mm-hmm.
that's what I call it, with all the seats and all the people there.
Yeah, I was like over in the kind
That's
of.
where I saw the praying mantis I did the painting of. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it finally got to see one of those guys. So
Yeah. But
she's a catalyst. She's really connecting us all. It's amazing, and she's so quiet and so not unassuming. You know.
Yeah, I absolutely love Susie. All the love to her and everything that she does. So, but yeah, again, not to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us today.
Thank you,
Thank you for having me on. This was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it very much. And yes,
that means the world to us.
We do all love each other very much, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Thank you. Everyone, please subscribe to us, then also over there in his channel. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Bad monkey.